Good morning, everyone. My name is Hiram Jackson, and I'm the CEO of RealTime Media, the parent company for some historic Black-owned newspapers: the Pittsburgh Courier, the Chicago Defender, the Atlanta Daily World, the Atlanta Tribune, and my hometown paper right here in Detroit, the Michigan Chronicle. We have a very exciting program with you today. I want to welcome you to Black Press Week. We're going to be talking about some very interesting things, specifically the challenges that Black businesses have had during COVID-19 and what the vision is moving forward. We're going to talk to Congressman Jim Clyburn, who really needs no introduction, but he's the majority whip and he's the third ranking Democrat in the United States House of Representatives. He previously served in this position from 2007 to 2011, and has recently returned, obviously, when the Democrats took control earlier this year. I'd like to bring Congressman Clyburn to the screen, and we're just going to have a chat about the Black press, about the Biden administration, the American Rescue Act, and hopefully get a few questions in about the Black press. Hello there, Congressman.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, let me start by saying, Congressman, on behalf of the Black press and really the country, we admire the work that you've done. I quite frankly don't know where we would be without your leadership right now. You were the man that really turned the tide during the election, and you've been a voice of reason. And I just want to say thank you on behalf of the Black press for standing up when we needed you most.
Well, thank you for that. I saw my role last year in the election as being one to try to facilitate the election of the person I thought could, in fact, defeat the incumbent. I tell people all the time, you spend time studying issues, studying candidates and personalities, and you size up what you're up against.
Right.
I think most people know the incumbency is tough.
Right.
And so I just thought that Joe Biden, of course, my late wife told me a year earlier that that's what she thought I'd better do.
Right. And you gotta listen to your wife. Nobody happy if you don't listen to your wife. I appreciate that. We're in the 194th year of the Black press, Congressman, and the Black press has seen times like this before. The Great Migration, World War I and War II, Civil Rights Movement, and 2020 was just just a unique year. We had a 100-year health pandemic we hadn't seen in 100 years. We had, police murders, Black Lives Matter protests. We had, right-wing terrorists all over the country. And on top of all of that, we had an election. Tell us about your vision that you would like to see come out of the Black press. And the thing, and how we can better be a part of making sure our people are connected to these kinds of issues.
Well, as you know, I've been in the business. I know what the challenges are, and I think I also have a feel for what works. Mm-hmm. And I think that to the extent that we can tell the stories of people's experiences, we can be a moving force in our communities.
Right.
If we just look at this new law that's now moving forward, I think it's going to be a real significant change. People have got to know how that law affects them,
right?
How it affects their families, their communities, and I think the Black press does just a great job with that. And the problem we've got is that because things are structured the way they are, we have a lot of businesses, for instance, that the black press got to rely upon to keep going, tend not to have a good sense of the black community. You aren't going to get Arbitron ratings and all that kind of stuff when it comes to the black press. You have to rely upon the mechanisms that are in place for getting the word out. Because nobody's going to be at the front door of the church where I used to distribute to find out how many people picked that newspaper up on the way out of church. But it happens.
No doubt. And you know, the readership is much larger than some of the places, because we're talking about it in the barbershop and the supermarkets and really setting the tone for a lot of the neighborhood conversation. You know, last year, the whole concept of trusted voices, you know, the kids call them influencers now, you know, but, you know, pastors are trusted voices, community leaders, elected officials. I think we really saw that in 2020. We had to have trusted voices tell us how to stay safe during COVID-19, about a lot of the protests that were going on. We need trusted voices now to help get people vaccinated. And so I think that is the continued role of the black press. People know and love the black press. And we want to be really the vehicle that helps them understand what's in this American Rescue Act. Can you help us understand? You know, everybody gets excited about the $1,400. But I just think that way is too simple a way to look at it. Can you share some of the things that we really need to be focused on, so we can share with our community what's impactful about the $1.9 trillion bill?
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you pointed that out. I get a little irritated every time I look at these reports, keep talking about the $1,400 and the fact that, as I read this morning, the Biden administration, the Democrats didn't keep their promise because they said it was going to be $2,000 and they only did $1,400. This kind of misinformation is what caused the strike. And I think the black media will do well to pick up on that and to make people understand that when we were talking about $2,000, it was nothing. And we only got the other side, because we were not in power, to agree to $600. And then we got in power on January the 20th. The House came in on January 5th when we took over. Then we added the $1,400 to make it the $2,000 we were campaigning on. So that's the fact. So we're going to have to rely on the black media for that. But then, even if you look at that, that's not the big deal to me. The big deal is the other stuff you find in this bill. How many times have people written about the $5 billion in this plan for black farmers? It's there. We've had the senator from our state, Lindsey Graham, criticize the program. Said it was reparations. Well, what's wrong with that? Reparations simply come from the fact that they were done wrong before, and we're trying to make it right. That's the kind of stuff people need to focus on. And what we're doing, there's $29 billion in this plan for vaccinations and getting not just somebody standing somewhere to vaccinate. We're doing mobile units, getting these people, vaccinators, out in the communities where they can be effective. So there's so much in this plan. And the thing to me that I like, one of the things I like, is the fact that the last administration tried to cut short, if you remember, the enrollment period for the Affordable Care Act was rolled back and shortened And they tried everything they could, took away the money for the navigators that went out to help people sign up. One of the big things we did in this bill, we are putting money there for people who would have gotten the Affordable Care Act. They can get it now. And this president has reopened the enrollment period. So if you ever talk about election having consequences, this past election has some real consequences, and we are demonstrating it every day. So small businesses, this is a big, big deal. $28 billion for restaurants and other small businesses that had to close to get them open back up again. So when you look at small businesses in the Black community, this plan is earth-shattering for them.
And that was going to be my next question. You feel that because where I was Congressman, your impact in terms of helping the president win South Carolina primary, you had the Black vote in Milwaukee, Detroit, Atlanta, in urban areas. Clearly, Black people stood up and showed out. You obviously feel like Black people should be well represented in getting the financial benefit from the American Rescue Act. So in terms of, we know that Black women have been disproportionately impacted by COVID-19 and Black-owned, women-owned small businesses. So you feel confident that the Black community will feel that we are receiving its proper share of the resources?
Well, the money's there. For instance, $15 billion of what we call flexible grants for the smallest and most severely impacted business. $15 billion. What I think the Black media must do is really go through this bill and share with your readers and let them know in the next week, most of the Black media are weeklies, and some are semi-weekly. I don't think any of now I call semi-weekly twice a week. Some people call that bi-weekly, and I know that we can argue about that. But whatever it is, if you once a week or twice a week, whatever it may be, bring your readers into this. And say, next week, here's what we're going to talk about, how you can benefit from this $7.2 billion that's in this plan for the Paycheck Protection Program, which you were not eligible for the first time. We have put this in this plan so a lot of businesses can now benefit that did not benefit from it before. Remember, when we did the plan before, we had somebody in the White House and the Senate under leadership of a guy who did not see it the way we saw it at the time. So we are doing now with this plan what we should have done under the CARES Act. But we're also making it possible that a lot of CARES Act money didn't get spent. And we are able people to spend that now and putting the rules on it. So we are going to get the word out. For instance, I'm writing letters this week to people in my congressional district, spelling out exactly what this plan will do for them and their communities and the state. In every one of those letters, I'm also saying to them, now this is what you get, your family. But here's what is going to your state. Or that is, in my instance, South Carolina. So we've got to really connect people, not just with this thing on a personal level, but see how they can advocate for other things that may be going to their county, their city, or their town, and their state.
Well, Congressman, we're going to have Congressman Evans. We interviewed him yesterday. He's going to follow your interview, and I want to encourage our audience to stay around so to hear his comments. I just want to, we in the Black press, we go to work every day. We put out great publications. We're making investments in our platforms. Even those weekly publications, we're 24/7 now. How can we make sure that some of the right financial resources are from this act, that we're given access to them as a small business to make sure that our communities are getting those information? Are there any financial opportunities for the Black press? I mean, yesterday we had our board meeting and we had a conversation about there being line items for media. But if you look in there, media and outreach, if you look in there, you see some of the big agencies or the larger companies. What can we do to make sure that those resources get down to these individual Black media companies?
Well, I think we have to do what we had to do when it relates to state and local governments.
Right.
You may remember one of the biggest problems we had was the difference between my side of the aisle, how we thought the money ought to be spent, and the other side. See, I'm one of those people who believe that you go through the states or around the states in order to get resources out to these small towns. Let me tell you why that's so important. In South Carolina, we got 30-something African-American mayors. They are mayors. We got the mayor of Columbia, the capital city. Steve Benjamin is African-American. But most of the mayors, when you get down, we now have an African-American mayor in Florence and Orangeburg. But you go to these small towns, and they are at the mercy of the state government if we don't provide direct funding to them.
Right.
And so that's why I want everybody to go through this bill and says, okay, these are the businesses that we want to see what's going to them, so that the media can relate not just to the beat, the state and the national stuff. Right. Like I said I had my whip meeting this morning, and I said to them, I said, now, when you start inviting media to what you're doing in your districts, just remember, these people don't subscribe to the New York Times and the Washington Post. Right. You go to those local media and bring them on board. That means the weeklies and the small town newspapers. That is what people rely on, and that's where the most connections are made. Absolutely. I guarantee you that you can literally count the number of Washington Post subscribers you find in most of the counties that I represent. Absolutely. But they know that Black newspaper that they see at church every Sunday. And so that's what you've got to do.
Absolutely. Okay, that's a great message. We just got a couple of minutes left. What about vaccination hesitancy? Can you share with our audience just some words of encouragement about there's some light at the end of the tunnel here. It's a long tunnel. It's a long tunnel. Some of us are starting to feel hopeful. Thank God I've been vaccinated. How can we make sure that our people are getting that message? And what would your message be to our readers and our audience about receiving the vaccination?
I would say to your readers, I know the history, the Tuskegee Airmen. I know the story of Henrietta Lacks, and I know that those are things that's hard to get around. But I also know how dangerous this virus is. Mm-hmm. I also know how many people have died as a result of it. In my own family, one of the earliest victims in South Carolina was a first cousin for whose name was named after my mother. Right. So this is a very serious problem that we have. And I will say to them, I've had both my shots, mm-hmm. And I'm encouraging people to take the shots. Now, if I had any doubt about it, 'cause I will let you know what the doubt is.
Right.
Well, I don't have any doubt.
Right.
We now have an African American woman, Asian American as well, sitting in the vice presidency.
Mm-hmm.
She has taken the shot and encouraging people to take the shot. So I'm saying to people, please protect your children and your grandchildren.
Yes,
protect those with whom you come in contact. Take the shot. It's safe to do. Now, this is not to say that there ain't ever going to be any kind of reaction.
Right.
A lot depends upon your own body as to how it affects one. But if you're 95% chance, oh man, I would certainly play the lottery every day if I had a 95% chance of winning.
No, absolutely. And thank you so much for that message. Are there any last words that you'd like to share with our audience? We have, a couple of hundred Black publishers here, some of the broader audience listening. Would you like to share any final thoughts, Congressman?
Yes, I would. There's one especially. I think that the Black community has been hit hard by the misinformation that is going out here, disguising itself as truth and, well, what we might call news. We have to be very, very careful going forward. The new reports are now out at what was going on in the election last year. And a lot of things that were said out here just were not true. We got to understand that people will misuse social media to discourage and dissuade. I have 3 daughters who follow the social media, and they were very upset when I endorsed Joe Biden, what people were saying about me and that endorsement. Those stuff were planted by people who wanted to subvert the system. Now, all the experts looking back and says, we believe that nobody else could have won but Joe Biden. But that's not what people were reporting.
Right.
People reporting, and they said some nasty stuff about me for making an endorsement. But we just have to know that these social media posts are being used,
right,
to put out false information, to turn people against each other, to subvert our communities, and we have to be careful going forward. And I think that's an added burden that the Black media is going to have in the going forward in the near future.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Congressman. I appreciate those words. I mean, like I said, we've been around 194 years, and we've seen this before.
Right.
And so, let's create a tighter bond between the Congressional Black Caucus and the Black Press. Joyce Beatty is my friend. I love her. And the Vice Chair, Brenda Lawrence, is my hometown Congresswoman. We want to be locked in step with you guys in terms of making sure that our people get the right information. And thank you so much.
Very good. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Have a wonderful day.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Hiram Jackson, and thank you for joining us for this amazing conference and what I hope to be an amazing interview here. My name is Hiram Jackson. I'm the CEO of RealTime Media. We are the proud owners of the Pittsburgh Courier, the Chicago Defender, the Atlanta Daily World, the Atlanta Tribune, and the Michigan Chronicle. I'm here today speaking with a wonderful guest during this Black Press Week 2021. Business, politics, and public policy. That's our theme here today. And what are the implications for small business and specifically Black-owned media? So I'd like to introduce our guest. He's Congressman Dwight Evans. He represents the 3rd Congressional District in Pennsylvania, which includes the Northwest and West Philadelphia parts of North and South and Center City, Philadelphia. He was first elected in a special election in November 2016. But before that, he's got decades of experience in the State House. He's well known as a pragmatic leader who really knows how to put public policy above politics. He has a very successful career, public service career, and he joins us today. Thank you so much, Congressman, for coming. Appreciate you making time to be with us. We have a very few minutes, so I'd like to kind of jump in it, but thanks for coming, Congressman.
Thank you.
So we got the American Rescue Plan, $1.9 trillion. And there's a lot of legal jargon there. There are a lot of sections and articles, but I'd like to just speak with you casually about what it really means for Black people, for small business. You serve on the Small Business Subcommittee, so you are right there on the front line of making this bill happen. Can you share with us some of the highlights of the bill?
First thing, Hiram, I want to thank you for having this opportunity to have this kind of conversation, because we're at a real crossroad when you think about it. We are facing something that hasn't happened in 100 years, a century, which is a pandemic, and the effect that it's had, particularly upon people of color, particularly upon small businesses, people of color, and it's been very devastating. And the fact of the matter, we needed a different kind of leadership, and I believe President Biden, Vice President Harris have provided the kind of leadership that is necessary. And when I say necessary, the approach that they have taken, which I support, was first, we must crush the virus.
Yes. And
get shots in the arms. I think this is important to understand, particularly the effect that it had upon people of color and the impact that it's had. So we first had to do that, get trusted leaders to be part of it. And the Black press is very important in communicating and having access, and the more open and transparent. So the American Rescue Act, I believe, is the first start in terms of trying to address it. So it's first shots in arms and the vaccine and ensuring that people of color have full access. I know in the city of Philadelphia, there's a group called the Black Doctors Consortium,
right,
which have been, you've heard that, they've been in the lead on it. So I want to talk about them and the importance of them. That's the first step. Secondly, in terms of small businesses, particularly Black-owned businesses, they're like the backbone of this economy. And they have gone through something which is no fault of their own. But the question is how to manage it. And the package part of the American Rescue talks about the element of making eligible grants and loans eligible to the press, the Black press, particularly with the PPP. That's something that's very important.
Yes.
Because first, by crushing the virus and then having money available, capital, which, as you know, and you've been in this one, and I know Pittsburgh, is making it accessible to people, making capital, which is always an issue. So that's a major step. And President Biden and Vice President Harris, I believe, have shown that kind of leadership and understands the needs to getting this economy back to where it was, if not better.
Congressman, I was looking at some stats the other day, and there are some economists who are predicting that up to 40% of small Black-owned businesses will not be able to reopen their doors. And To me, that's horrific and frightening. We depend on so many Black small businesses in our neighborhoods to help us, um, you know, feed our children, get a haircut, all of the things that small businesses do. If I'm a small business and I'm looking at this American Rescue Act, I'm looking at $2 trillion. Where should we be telling our people to focus on? Everybody's focused on the $1,400 stimulus check, but there's so much more in that bill that would help small businesses. And so, can you share with us a few examples of, if you're a small business, the things that you should be looking for to help you get back on your feet?
Uh, that's a very good question. And the first thing I would talk about is the PPP program,
Mhm.
which makes individuals eligible for access to capital
Right,
small business administration, because that by that way that certifies and rebuilds the
hmm,
force of their business, which in turn ensuring that they can have workers,
right,
ensuring that they can meet the needs of the customers.
right,
So you figure that the shots in the arm in conjunction with the PPP begins to add some stability back to the environment. And
right,
that's very important in terms of long-term stability. I was very happy that the president and vice president went big and bold. The
right,
chairman of the Federal Reserve said that in terms of this situation, which is shades of the depression, that's how far we had to go back, that
wow,
if we was going to rebuild this economy, we had to rebuild the sense of confidence. And
right,
the black press is important to that equation,
right,
with the history of the black press and the role that the black press plays within this country. It's important to have the 200 publications all
right,
around the nation have that stability, have that sense of confidence. That's why I think, as you asked this question, I said to you, it builds confidence.
right,
As the president and the vice president talk about help is on the way,
right,
that
right,
is very important to recognize that the black press has to know that means them too.
right,
Help is on the way, and that the black press will be able to take advantage, so that the black press, like our constituency, have to know that they are in the loop and
right,
that they too are very much a part of what's taking place and not left out of the investments that are necessary. And I was with the president just yesterday, and he was in Pennsylvania, and he was starting out his Pennsylvania and Delaware County. Matter of fact, the city of Chester,
right,
and the city of Chester, which
mhm,
I know the Mayor Thaddeus Kirkland.
right,
He was in the state house with me, so I share with you. That's from building from the bottom up that the president demonstrates.
right,
So this interview here is about sharing with you. I know the members of the Congressional Black
right,
Caucus,
right,
the Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, is really showing how important it is that we bring these things together today.
right. Well, Congressman Joyce Beatty is a great friend of mine. I love her to death. I love her to death.
She's a fantastic leader. Joyce Beatty's a fantastic leader.
Absolutely. I appreciate your comments about the Black press. I think we're going into the 176th year of the Black press. In my intro, I mentioned that we own the Pittsburgh Courier, my company, and the Chicago Defender, two storied newspapers that have been around since 1905. It appears that some people in our country don't give the Black press the respect that it's obviously deserved at this point. But we learned during COVID that trusted voices still matter. When you talk about getting people, fighting the COVID myths, explaining to people how not to be exposed to the virus, looking at vaccinations, getting shots in arms, it shows you just how much trusted voices matter in Black communities today, because we've had such a distrustful relationship with the government and the medical community over the last several decades. So I appreciate your comments about the Black press. what things can we do to make sure that we are on top of the American Rescue Plan as the black press community and receiving some of the financial benefit and being used as a vehicle to get your messages out?
Well, I couldn't do this interview if I don't make sure I mention the Philadelphia Tribune and Bob
Absolutely.
Bogle,
Yeah.
the Tribune, the Pittsburgh Courier, the Chicago Defender. I know Bob Bogle very well, and I kind of grew with the Philadelphia Tribune myself. It really added to my career. So I
Right.
share with you, I understand the significance of the black press to the DNA to
Yes.
building back better. That's important. The black press is a major player in this rebuild. So I want to make
Right.
sure I state that very clearly. And when you talk about the black press in terms of the economy, there's no way in the world you're going to talk about building back better without the participation of the black press. Vice President Harris, as well as
Right.
President Biden, fully understands how the black press plays a part of that equation. So when
Right.
you talk about the trust aspect and you talk about readership, that readership audience there, you clearly need to understand that that audience is extremely important. When you talk about the shots in arms, you talk about the small businesses, you understand that is extremely valuable to this rebuilding, building back better.
Mm-hmm.
So this conversation just now is a part of the overall conversation
Right.
of the importance of the black press in this rebuild. As I said, something like this hasn't happened in 100 years. And though
Right.
you're right when you say, we understand, unfortunately within this country, going back, the unfair treatment, but as usual, I'm very proud of black people in the black press of enduring it anyway. We're doing it anyway. We're doing it. We know there's nothing wrong. We talk about the systematic racism and the challenges we have, but we still make it because here in this country, which in return looks at the world and what's going on, there's all these implications. Okay? So it's important to understand that this is an opportunity. We got a lot of work and work together, and I believe with this new president, new vice president, we can build back better.
Absolutely. Well, my producer corrected me. It's the 194th year of the
Okay.
black press. Now I said 176, and so you're right. This is the black press has been standing tall, and I'm pleased to see that we have such a kindred spirit with the Congressional Black Caucus. Every black congressperson I talk to is a fan of the black press. They know who that black publisher is locally, and there's a relationship. My Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, I love her to death. No,
I
no,
saw her yesterday.
yeah, I mean,
I saw her and the chairperson. They were together yesterday. I talked to them yesterday.
yeah, she's a sweetheart. I love her, and she's smart and quick, and she represents Detroit well. That's
Yes.
where I am right now. And if you think about it, Congressman, if you think of cities like, if you think of Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Detroit, and Atlanta,
Correct.
I mean, those are the cities that carried the election right there. So I'm curious of what your thoughts about the Biden-Harris administration. I'm assuming that they recognize that black people stood up. The black press was very much a part of that, and that people are receiving their stimulus checks and this 1.9 trillion dollars as a result of black people getting out to vote, and in particular those cities everywhere, but in particular those cities.
Well, you asked a great question because you beat me to the punch. There would not be President Biden or Vice President Harris without those cities.
Right.
Georgia, Atlanta. It wouldn't be the majority in the United States Senate.
Right.
Senator Warlock, and I applaud him for getting elected from Georgia. Think about that. First
Yeah.
time ever. Started
Right.
in Atlanta.
Right.
You can talk about Milwaukee, what Milwaukee means, and
Right.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin, what that means. Philadelphia. right? Philadelphia,
Right.
Milwaukee, Detroit,
Yeah.
the value of them, the Motor City,
Yeah.
all of those combinations, Milwaukee, Detroit, Atlanta, Philadelphia, all those, it's not an accident that individuals trying to steal the election through that process.
Right.
Black people, black press was at the basis of the election of this president and this vice president. First time ever a woman of color on the ticket, and that's important to understand that
Right.
that factor. So all the things you mentioned, and all particularly the black press, was all very much involved in that.
Right.
It was interwoven. That was together.
Right.
So when you talk about policy and politics and economics, that is why you need to be a part of the American Rescue Act.
Right.
Policy, politics, and economics.
Right.
Building that wealth and opportunity. That's why we're going to beat this pandemic. We got to rebuild these communities, and we got to deal with, as Karen Bass, the Congresswoman for California, talks about the George Floyd policing issue. That's one of the issues that we have in the forefront.
Right.
The late John Lewis talked about voting rights, voting participation.
Yes.
John Lewis Voting Advancement Act is another thing there. So it's very key that those cities you mentioned are very key to the direction of this country. And
Right.
it's good that we are very active in this.
Right. Well, I want to thank you, Congressman. This has been a joy. I don't usually get an opportunity to be the person doing the interviewing. I'm usually in the back counting the money. But I've thoroughly enjoyed this, and let's keep Philly strong, keep Detroit strong, keep Milwaukee strong, and Atlanta. And I'm very hopeful that as we emerge out of COVID, that our people see the opportunities that are going to be in front of us. We've been out in the midst of death and destruction for the past year or so, but I'm feeling encouraged that things are going to get better. And I'm sorry we couldn't be there in DC with you guys, but we'll be there next year for sure.
I look forward to it. And now that the Sixers have a basketball team, we'll be more than happy with it. But I thank you again, and particularly the chairwoman, Joyce Beatty, and Barbara Brenda Lawrence, those two together.
Right.
It's a good combination in Congressional Black Card. Right. And I thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and it's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to meet you in person.
You got it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Take care.